Stop right now, Robert. You are not going anywhere. My son-in-law grabbed my arm. His grip was like a steel trap. My own house was being robbed, and he wouldn't let me leave. He looked me in the eye, his face flushed with an emotion I didn't recognize at first. It wasn't fear for me, it was fury. He said he was protecting me. He said I was too old, too emotional. He said I wasn't thinking clearly. He thought I was a confused old man, easily broken, ready to be put away. He was about to learn that this old carpenter knew how to recognize rot, and I knew how to tear it down. If this story finds you, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. It helps to know I'm not alone in this world. My name is Robert, and this is the story of how my family tried to erase me. The driveway to David's house always felt too long. Smooth gray stones crunched under the tires of my old Ford truck. The sound was unnatural. Driveways should be asphalt or dirt. Solid, honest. Honest, his house loomed ahead. A massive structure of glass and steel. It looked more like a corporate headquarters than a home. Cold, empty. I parked the truck. A familiar tightness settled in my chest. I hated this place. It was a monument to everything I wasn't. I'm a carpenter. 40 years I spent building things with my hands. Real things. Tables meant for family dinners. Houses meant to hold warmth. I built things to last. David, my son-in-law, it illusions. He was in finance. Something complicated. High-risk investments. Words that meant nothing to me. He and my daughter, Sarah, lived a life I didn't understand. Expensive cars, furniture that looked painful to sit on, and a constant hum of anxiety that seemed to vibrate off the glass walls. I missed the warmth. I missed my wife. I walked up the steps. I carried a bottle of wine, the kind Sarah liked. It had been 2 years since Helen passed away. 2 years of silence in my own house. These bi-weekly dinners were Sarah's attempt to keep me tethered to the world, to make sure I was eating. I went for her, only for her. But every time I came here, I felt a little smaller, a little older, a little more irrelevant. The massive front door swung open before I reached it. It was automatic, unwelcoming. "Robert, great to see you," David boomed. He clapped me on the back. A little too hard. It always felt forced. A performance. He was dressed sharply. A crisp white shirt, expensive slacks. Even on a Tuesday evening, his smile was bright, polished, and utterly empty. "Good evening, David." I kept my voice steady. Inside, the house was freezing. The air conditioning was always turned up too high. It smelled sterile, like a hospital waiting room. But the chill wasn't just from the air. "Dad!" Sarah emerged from the kitchen. She was wiping her hands on a towel. She hugged me tightly. She looked beautiful, but terse. There were faint shadows under her eyes. Makeup couldn't hide them. Her shoulders were tense, pulled up near her ears. She looked like she was carrying the weight of the world. "Hey, sweetheart." I hugged her back, breathing in the faint scent of her perfume. "You look tired." "Just jerked, Dad. You know how it is." She linked her arm with mine, a practiced gesture. Her hand felt cold. She led me into the dining room. The dining room was another expanse of glass and cold surfaces. A long, polished table sat in the center. It could seat 12. There were only 3 of us. I wondered if she was happy, truly happy, but I never asked. Maybe I should have. We sat down. We made polite conversation. The weather, my small woodworking shop, my latest project. David pretended to be interested. He'd nod, ask a question, then check his watch. Subtle, but he always did it. And then, inevitably, the conversation turned to my future. It always did lately. David always steered it there. But tonight felt different. It felt like an ambush. "Robert, we need to seriously discuss the house." David started. He swirled the wine in his glass. His eyes were sharp, calculating. I sighed internally. Here we go again. "It's too big for you now," he continued. "The maintenance alone must be overwhelming." I focused on my plate. Roasted chicken, asparagus, perfectly cooked. Tasteless. "I managed just fine, David," I said, cutting into the chicken. My voice was calm, but my grip on the knife tightened. George helps with the heavy lifting, and I like the space. George was my gardener. He had been with Helen and me for 20 years. He was more family than employee. Loyal. David didn't care about that. He didn't understand loyalty. Still, David pressed on. His tone dripped with practiced concern. It was the same tone he used when talking to clients. I imagined persuasive, manipulative. The market is hot right now. You could sell it, make a fortune. He leaned forward. We could help you move into one of those new luxury senior communities. Simplify your life. Simplify. That was his favorite word. It meant giving up control. We could help you invest the proceeds, he added. Make that money really work for you. His eyes gleamed, not with concern, with greed. Naked, unapologetic greed. I felt a familiar irritation rising. It was a slow burn in my gut. Since Helen died, David had been circling my assets like a hawk. My house was paid off. I had a modest retirement fund. I was secure, and I was independent. That independence seemed to bother him more than anything. I appreciate the concern, David, I said, setting my fork down. I looked him straight in the eye. But the house is my home. It's where Helen and I built our life. Every corner holds a memory. I'm not selling it. Not now. Not ever. I wanted him to understand. This was not up for discussion. But David never took no for an answer. He just changed tactics, and his next move was a low blow. Sarah looked down at her plate. She was twisting her napkin nervously in her lap. Her silence was deafening. Dad, David is just trying to help, she whispered. She looked up, her eyes pleading with me to agree, pleading with me to make things easier. For her, for David. He's worried about you? We both are. She paused. You seem a bit distracted lately. Forgetful. My blood pressure spiked. This was a new tactic, and it stung deeply. It was calculated, cruel, and it came from my own daughter. I'm grieving, Sarah, I said, my voice tight. That's not the same as losing my mind. I looked at my daughter. How could she say that? How could she side with him? The betrayal cut deeper than I thought possible. Of course not, David said smoothly. He put a comforting hand over Sarah's, a gesture of unity, a gesture of control, disguised as comfort. No one is saying that, but grief can cloud judgment. He leaned back, the picture of reasonable concern. He was so calm, so rational, it made me feel irrational, emotional. Remember last week when you misplaced your keys? He asked, his voice gentle, like he was talking to a child. And you forgot our lunch date last month. He listed my small mistakes like evidence in a trial. We just want to make sure you're protected, Robert, David concluded. I felt a flush of embarrassment. Those things were true. I had misplaced my keys. I had forgotten the lunch date. But they were small mistakes. Meaningless. I was tired. My heart was broken. I was lonely. But David made it sound like I was falling apart. Incompetent. Senile. He was building a narrative. A dangerous narrative. It felt rehearsed, like they had discussed this before I arrived. I looked at Sarah. The fact that she believed him, that she participated in this charade, hurt more than anything David could ever say. She was choosing his hurry over mine. In fact, David continued, his voice lowering conspiratorially, his tone shifting from concern to business. I had some papers drawn up, just standard estate planning. We should look them over tonight. He gestured towards a leather briefcase sitting by the sideboard. It looked expensive, ominous. My stomach nodded. I didn't like being pressured. I didn't like the way he made me feel small, incapable, like a child who needed supervision. Not tonight, David, I said firmly. I picked up my wine glass, my hand steady. I wouldn't let him see me sweat. David frowned. A flicker of annoyance crossed his face. He wasn't used to being defied. He downed his wine and poured another glass, a large one. He didn't offer me any. The tension at the table thickened. It was suffocating. We finished the meal in relative silence. Everything was fine, on the surface, but underneath, the tension was simmering, ready to boil over. I felt trapped in this cold house, trapped in this manufactured reality. Sarah brought out a pie for dessert. Apple, Helen's favorite. My throat felt tight looking at it. the lattice crust, the cinnamon scent. It was a cruel reminder of everything I had lost, a memory of warmth in this cold room. As Sarah poured the coffee, my cell phone started buzzing violently in my pocket. I usually ignored calls during dinner, but this felt urgent. I pulled it out. It was George. He never called this late. Never. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. "Excuse me," I muttered. I stood up, answering the phone. My chair scraped loudly against the marble floor. "George, is everything okay?" I walked quickly towards the hallway, seeking privacy. The cold air of the foyer hit me. I could feel David's eyes on my back. George's voice was hushed, frantic. "Mr. Robert," he whispered, "are you home?" My blood ran cold. George knew I was at Sarah's. He knew I wasn't home. Why would he ask that? "No, George. I'm at David's." "What happened?" My voice rose. Anxiety clouded my throat. I needed air. "I was taking the trash out," George said, his voice trembling, "and I saw lights on in your study. I went closer." He paused. I heard him breathing heavily. "Someone is walking around your house, Mr. Robert." "2 men. They're inside." My heart stopped. My study. Helen's jewelry. The safe where I kept my important papers. The deeds, the wills, everything. The memories. My life. Violated. "I'm coming right now," I shouted into the phone. The calmness I had maintained during dinner shattered. Adrenaline surged through me. "Call the police. George, call 9. Don't let them see you." "Hide." I hung up the phone. My hands were shaking. I fumbled for my truck keys in my pocket. I had to get home. I had to protect what was mine. "What is it? What's wrong?" Sarah asked, her face pale. She had followed me into the hallway. David was right behind her. "Someone's in my house," I said, already halfway to the front door. "I have to go." I yanked the heavy front door open. The cold night air hit my face. A shock to the system. I was ready to run to my truck, to fly down that pretentious driveway. But before I could take a step outside, a hand clamped down on my arm. A steel trap. It was David. His face was red. His eyes were wide. Intense, but not with fear for me. He was furious. "What do you think you're doing?" he demanded. His voice was low, threatening. "Dangerous. Let go of me," I yelled, trying to pull my arm free. His grip was surprisingly strong. Painful. "Someone is breaking into my house." He yanked me back inside the house. He slammed the door shut. The sound echoed in the empty foyer like a gunshot. "You can't go there," he yelled. "David, let him go." Sarah cried out. She looked confused, terrified. "What are you doing?" "It's his house." But David ignored her. He grabbed my other arm. His face was inches from mine. "Stop," he shouted. His voice echoed in the cold, sterile space. It wasn't a plea. It was a command. "Stop right now, Robert." He commanded, his breath hot on my face. "You are not going anywhere." The mask had slipped. The polished businessman was gone, replaced by something desperate. Something dangerous. "What are you talking about?" I roared. I struggled against him. The sheer absurdity of the situation fueled my panic. My rage. It's my house. I have to protect what's mine. "It's dangerous," David insisted. He positioned himself between me and the door. A guard dog. There could be armed robbers. He looked me up and down. His eyes were filled with contempt. "You're an old man, Robert. You'll get yourself killed." An old man. He said it like a curse. "I don't care. Let me go." I shoved him. He stumbled back, but quickly recovered. "We call the police from here," David said, his voice tight. Controlled. He was trying to sound reasonable again. The mask was slipping back into place, trying to regain control of the situation. "That's the smart thing to do." He looked at me. His eyes narrowed. "You're emotional. You're not thinking clearly." He was doing it again, repeating the script they had rehearsed earlier at dinner. Emotional. Not thinking clearly. Forgetful. Treating me like a child. In front of my own daughter. The humiliation burned hotter than the fear. "Dad, please," Sarah pleaded. Tears welled in her eyes. She reached out a trembling hand. "David is right. Wait for the police. Please don't go there alone. I can't lose you two. I looked at her, heartbroken. She was siding with him again. They both thought I was incapable. Weak. I stopped struggling, but not out of defeat. I stopped because I realized something was terribly wrong. David's panic wasn't about my safety. It was too intense, too desperate. It was about his own agenda. He was stalling. But why? If you're so worried, why haven't you called the police yet? I asked, my voice dangerously low. David flinched. A micro-expression. Guilt. A small movement. Almost imperceptible. But I saw it. Doubt. I was about to, he said quickly. Too quickly. He picked up his phone from the hallway table. His thumb hovered over the screen. He was still stalling. Every second he wasted, the intruders were getting away with my belongings. With Helen's memories. Call him, David? I urged. My voice was sharp, demanding. He sighed dramatically, as if I was being unreasonable. A burden. He finally started dialing a number. But as he held the phone to his ear, I saw it. A text message notification popped up on his screen. It was just 2 words, but they hit me like a punch to the gut. Documents. Secured. David quickly swiped the notification away. His thumb moved with lightning speed, but it was too late. I had seen it. The pieces clicked into place. The pressure to sell the house. The talk about estate planning. The insistence that I was forgetful. The briefcase waiting by the sideboard. The desperate attempt to keep me here. This wasn't a random break-in. It was a setup, a theft, orchestrated by my own son-in-law. David didn't stop me to protect me. He stopped me to protect the intruders. He needed them to finish their job. He needed them to secure the documents. The truth hung in the air. Ugly, undeniable. My world tilted on its axis. And devastating. 5 minutes later, the silence in the foyer was suffocating. Who was that? I asked. My voice trembled with a rage so cold it scared me. Who was what? David replied. His voice dripped with fake innocence. He was still pretending to be on hold with the police. Pacer. A masterful performance. A performance for Sarah. The text message, I said, stepping closer to him, pointing at his phone. Document secured. Who sent that? David laughed. A short, ugly sound. Robert, you're paranoid. Grief is making you see things. It was a work message. Something about a deal closing. At this hour, on a Tuesday night, my voice was laced with skepticism. The market never sleeps, Robert, he said condescendingly. He looked down at me, a smirk playing on his lips. But you wouldn't understand that. You're just a carpenter. The insult was sharp, deliberate, meant to put me in my place. Just a carpenter. He always used my profession as an insult. He turned his attention back to the phone call. Finally speaking to someone, reporting the break-in with practiced ease. He gave the dispatcher my address, describing the situation as if he were ordering a pizza. Calm, detached. He didn't care, because he already knew what happened. I looked at Sarah. She was watching David. Her expression was troubled, confused. She had seen the text message, too. I could see the doubt creeping into her eyes, the cracks forming in the illusion David had built around their perfect life. She knew, but she didn't want to believe. Maybe she was finally seeing him. The real him. When David finally hung up, the silence in the room was deafening. The police are on their way, he announced. His confidence was returning. The mask was firmly back in place. His arrogance. They said to wait outside the house until they arrived. Let's go. He wanted us to go now, because he knew the house was empty. The intruders were gone. His mission was accomplished. He thought he had won. He was wrong. We drove to my house in separate cars. I drove fast. Too fast. My knuckles were white on the steering wheel. My old truck roared down the empty streets. My mind was racing. What documents did they take? And why did he need the physical copies so badly? What was he planning? The betrayal felt like a physical blow. It left me breathless. When I arrived, the street was bathed in flashing blue and red lights. 2 police cars were parked in my driveway. The sight made my stomach turn. My home violated. George was standing on the lawn, talking to an officer. He looked small, scared. Mr. Robert. George rushed over to me as I got out of the truck. They're gone. They left just before the police arrived. I'm sorry, I tried to get the license plate, but it was too dark. It's okay, George, I said, placing a reassuring hand on his shoulder. You did the right thing. Are you okay? He nodded, but his eyes were wide with fear. I walked into my house, the place I had shared with Helen for 40 years, the place I had built with my own hands. It felt violated, cold, empty, tainted. The police officer introduced himself as Officer Miller. He was young, thorough, professional. He asked me to walk through the house and check if anything was missing. He dusted for fingerprints, took notes. I walked through the rooms. The living room was untouched. The kitchen was wine. The bedrooms were undisturbed. Helen's jewelry box was still on the dresser. Her pearls, her wedding ring, still there. It didn't make sense. Why break into a house and not steal anything valuable? Unless they weren't looking for valuables. Then I remembered the text message. Documents secured. Then I went in my study. My heart pounded in my chest. The smell of sawdust and old paper usually comforted me. Tonight, it smelled like betrayal. The file cabinet in the corner, the one I kept locked. The lock was broken, hanging uselessly from the metal handle. I opened the drawer. It was empty. My will, the deed to the house, my life insurance policies, my bank account information, the original copies of everything that defined my financial life, gone. David and Sarah arrived just then. They walked into the study, their footsteps loud in the silence. David surveyed the scene with theatrical concern. A performance for the police. Robert, are you okay? What did they take? He asked. His voice was full of fake sympathy. My will, the deed, my financial records, I said, watching his face closely. David's expression didn't flicker. He was a good actor. I'll give him that. That's strange, he said, frowning, rubbing his chin. Why would anyone steal papers? It doesn't make any sense. You tell me, David, I said, my voice cold, hard. David recoiled, feigning offense. What are you implying? That I had something to do with this? That's insane. He looked at Sarah, appealing to her. He's accusing me, your husband. I saw the text message. David, I said, stepping closer to him. Ignoring Sarah, documents secured. Right after the break-in. Don't lie to me. I told you that was work, David insisted. He looked at Officer Miller for support. He raised his voice, making sure the officer heard him. Officer, my father-in-law is upset, David said, his voice dripping with condescending sympathy. He's confused. He tapped his temple, a gesture of dismissal. As I mentioned earlier tonight, he's been very forgetful lately. Grief does strange things to the mind. He's clearly not thinking straight. He was doing it again, painting me as a confused old man, using my grief against me, a calculated move, designed to discredit me. It was sickeningly effective. Officer Miller looked uncomfortable. He looked from David's expensive suit to my old work clothes. I could see the doubt in his eyes. He was young, intimidated by David's assertive tone. Sir, he said to me gently, do you have any concrete evidence that your son-in-law was involved? A text message about work isn't proof of a crime. I didn't, just a gut feeling. A disappearing notification, and a lifetime of knowing when something wasn't right. No, I admitted. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. I felt a wave of despair wash over me. I was helpless. David put a comforting arm around Sarah, who was trembling. See? He's not himself, David said, his voice oozing sympathy. We've been worried sick. We were actually discussing getting him some professional help tonight. Before all this happened, I felt a surge of rage so intense it nearly buckled my knees. He was destroying me, piece by piece, and I couldn't prove it. He had taken my documents. He had undermined my credibility. He had turned my daughter against me. I needed time. I needed to think. I needed to expose him. But first I needed to survive. I needed help. If this story has your heart racing, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. Every click helps us keep uncovering stories that deserve to be heard. It was time to fight back. The next morning, the reality of the situation settled in. The house felt too quiet. The silence was heavy, oppressive, empty. I was vulnerable. David had the originals. He could forge documents, transfer assets. He could drain my accounts, and I wouldn't have the proof to fight back.
He had me cornered.
Or so he thought. I needed help. I needed someone smarter than me. Someone who understood the law. I called Laura, an old family friend, a sharp estate lawyer. She had handled Helen's will. She was the only person I trusted. She was a bulldog. I met her at her office downtown. The office was small, cluttered, comforting. It smelled like old books and coffee. Laura was in her 60s. Sharp eyes, a no-nonsense attitude. She looked at me with genuine concern. "Robert, you look terrible," she said, pouring me a cup of coffee. I told her everything. The pressure from David, the constant comments about my memory, the dinner, the break-in, the missing documents, the text message. Laura listened patiently, taking notes on a yellow legal pad. Her expression grew grim. When I finished, she leaned back in her chair. She looked at me for a long moment. Her eyes were filled with concern, real concern. "Robert, this is serious," she said. "It sounds like David is planning something more than just stealing your papers. This is calculated, premeditated." "What do you mean?" I asked, my voice hoarse, dread pooling in my stomach. Laura hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "A few weeks ago, David called me. He was asking hypothetical questions." She paused. "He was asking about the process for obtaining a conservatorship." I stared at her, confused. "A conservatorship? What is that?" "It's a legal proceeding," Laura explained gently, "where someone is appointed to manage the affairs of a person who is deemed incompetent, mentally unfit." She looked me straight in the eye. "In other words, Robert, David is trying to take legal control of your life, your finance, your freedom, everything." The blood drained from my face. The air in the room suddenly felt thin. I couldn't breathe. That's why he was so focused on my forgetfulness, my distraction, my grief. He wasn't just trying to convince me to sell the house. He was building a case against me. He was systematically creating a narrative of incompetence. "He's trying to make me look like I have dementia," I whispered, horrified. The depth of the betrayal was staggering. It was monstrous. It was calculated, cruel. "Exactly," Laura said. "And the missing documents? He needs those to take over your assets smoothly, once the conservatorship is granted. He stole the originals to ensure you couldn't challenge his authority. He erased your financial history." I felt sick to my stomach. My own son-in-law, the man my daughter loved, the man I had welcomed into my family. He wasn't just trying to steal my money. He was trying to erase me, to lock me away in one of those luxury senior communities he kept talking about, to make me disappear. How could Sarah let him? I asked, the pain evident in my voice. She was there. She heard him, undermining me. She participated in it. Sarah is likely being manipulated, Laura said gently. David is sophisticated. He's a narcissist. He likely convinced her that he's doing this to protect you, that you truly need help, that she's saving you from yourself. She leaned forward. He isolated you, Robert. He turned your daughter's love into a weapon against you. He used her fear of losing you to control her. I thought about Sarah's tired eyes, the shadows, the anxiety. She wasn't just tired from work, she was exhausted from the emotional manipulation. She was a victim, too. We have to stop him, I said, my voice firm. The passive, grieving man I had become was gone, replaced by a cold, hard resolve. I was a fighter. I had built my life from nothing. I wasn't going to let this man tear it down. We will, Laura promised. But we need proof. We need to expose him before he files the petition. If he files, the burden of proof will be on you to prove you are competent, which is much harder, especially when he holds all the cards. We needed a plan, a strategy. We needed to find the weakness in his armor. We need to know why he's doing this. Laura said, greed is usually the motive, but this feels desperate, reckless. He's moving too fast. Laura started digging into David's finances. She made some calls, pulled some records. What she found was the missing piece of the puzzle. The motive. David wasn't just greedy. He was desperate. His investment firm was a house of cards, on the verge of collapse. He had been running a Ponzi scheme, embezzling money from his clients to maintain his lavish lifestyle. The glass house, the expensive cars, the designer clothes, the polished facade, it was all a lie. He was facing imminent exposure, and likely jail time. He needed my money, not just to get richer, but to save himself, to plug the holes in his sinking ship. The conservatorship was his desperate gamble, his lifeline. He was willing to destroy me, to save himself. It was time to cut the rope. We devised a plan. It was risky, but it was the only way. We had to trap him, to make him confess, to expose the rot underneath the polished facade. We organized a family meeting at my house. I invited David and Sarah. I told them it was to discuss the aftermath of the break-in, to talk about the future. Laura would be there too, as my legal counsel. I wanted the confrontation to happen in my home, on my terms, surrounded by the memories of the life he was trying to steal. I wanted Helen's presence to give me strength. The stage was set. The players were in place. It was time for the final act. The night of the meeting, the air in my house was thick with tension. It felt like a thunderstorm was about to break. David arrived with a smug look on his face. He thought he had won. He thought I was broken, defeated, ready to surrender. He brought the same leather briefcase he had the night of the dinner, the one that held the stolen pieces of my life. Sarah looked nervous. She avoided my eyes. The guilt was eating her alive. We sat in the living room, the same room where Helen and I had shared so many happy memories. The warmth of those memories felt like a shield against the coldness David brought into the room. David sat opposite me. Sarah next to him. Laura sat next to me, calm, composed, ready for battle. "Robert, what is this about?" David asked impatiently. He looked at Laura with disdain. "If this is about the estate planning, I have the documents right here." He opened the briefcase, pulled out a stack of papers. "My papers. We can finalize everything tonight," he continued. "It's time to stop being stubborn. It's time to let us help you. We're not here to talk about estate planning, David," I said calmly. My voice was steady, stronger than I expected. "We're here to talk about the conservatorship." David froze. His smile vanished. His face turned pale. His eyes darted towards Laura, then back to me. Sarah gasped. "A conservatorship," she whispered. She looked at David, confused, scared. "David, what is that? What is he talking about? You never mentioned anything about a conservatorship." "It's nothing, sweetheart," David said quickly, trying to control the situation. His voice was tight, strained. "It's just a legal formality, a way to help your father manage his affairs." He turned to me, his eyes blazing with anger. "He's clearly unwell. He's confused, paranoid. We discussed this, Sarah. He needs protection. It's a way to take control of his life," Laura interrupted. Her voice was sharp as steel. "By declaring him incompetent, by stripping him of his rights." Laura leaned forward, dominating the room. "And we know why you need the money, David. Your firm is failing. You embezzled client funds. You're running a Ponzi scheme. And you're facing criminal charges." David staggered back as if she had slapped him. The truth bomb exploded in the room. Sarah stared at her husband. Horrified, the realization dawned on her face, shattering the illusion she had clung to for so long. "David, is this true?" she whispered, tears streaming down her face. Her voice trembled. "Is this why you've been so stressed? Why you needed Dad's money so badly? You told me we were fine. You told me the business was thriving." David didn't answer. His silence was a confession. The mask had shattered, revealing the desperate, cruel man underneath. A deafening admission of guilt. "He was going to steal everything from me, Sarah," I said gently, my heart breaking for her, for the pain I knew she was feeling. "He was going to put me away, declare me incompetent, just so he could save himself. He orchestrated the break-in," I continued, my voice trembling with emotion, "to steal the documents he needed to execute his plan. He lied to you. He manipulated you. He used you." Sarah looked at him, her eyes filled with pain and disgust. The monster was finally exposed. David realized he was losing control. He became aggressive. Cornered animals are always the most dangerous. He is incompetent, David shouted, pointing at me, his face contorted with rage. He's a confused old man who can't even remember what happened last week. He needs help, whether he admits it or not. He took a deep breath. And I have proof. He pulled out a folder from his briefcase, threw it on the coffee table. A medical assessment, he announced triumphantly. His voice was shaking with adrenaline, diagnosing Robert with early-onset dementia.
Signed by a reputable neurologist, Dr. Adams. I stared at the document, horrified. It was a lie, a complete fabrication. I had never met a Dr. Adams. I had never been tested for dementia. This is fake, I whispered. The audacity of the forgery stunned me. He had thought of everything.
It's real, David insisted, his eyes blazing with manic energy. And it's enough to grant the emergency conservatorship. The hearing is tomorrow morning. He looked at me. A cruel smile played on his lips. It's done, Robert. It's over. You lost. He thought he had the final nail in my coffin, but I had a hammer of my own. He pulled out another set of papers. The conservatorship application. Sign these, Sarah, he demanded, handing her a pen. His voice was cold, authoritative. As his next of kin, your signature will ensure the judge approves it without delay. We have to protect him from himself. We have to do this. For him. Sarah looked at the papers, trembling. She looked at David, the man she married, the man she loved, the man who had lied to her, manipulated her, and was now trying to destroy her father. Then she looked at me. I didn't say anything. I just looked at her. I thought about Helen, about the life we had built together, about the daughter we had raised with love and honesty. I needed her to see me, the real me. Not the broken old man David wanted her to see. Your mother knew who I was, Sarah, I said quietly, my voice thick with emotion. She knew my heart. She knew my mind. Don't let him take that away from me. Don't let him erase me. Please. Tears streamed down Sarah's face. She looked at the pen in her hand, the instrument of my destruction. Then she threw it on the floor. The sound echoed in the silent room. No, she whispered. What did you say? David hissed. Disbelief, warring with fury. He grabbed her arm. Sign the papers, Sarah. Now. I said no, Sarah shouted, standing up. Her voice was shaking but strong. I will not sign these papers. I will not let you do this to my father. She looked at David with clear eyes, for the first time in years. I see you now, David. I see what you really are. She looked at him with pure contempt. A monster. David stared at her, stunned. He had lost her. His gamble had failed. His control shattered. You'll regret this, he threatened, looking at me with pure venom. Both of you. I will fight you. I will ruin you. That medical assessment is ironclad. You have no idea who you're messing with. No, it's not, Laura said calmly. She stood up and walked towards the study door. She opened it. A man stepped into the living room. He was middle-aged, dressed in a suit, looking deeply ashamed. The final piece of the puzzle. This is Dr. Adams, Laura announced. David paled. He staggered back, collapsing onto the sofa. He looked like he had seen a ghost. He recognized the man he had bribed. Dr. Adams, please tell us about the medical assessment you signed, Laura prompted. Dr. Adams looked at me, his eyes filled with regret. I never examined Mr. Robert, he confessed, his voice trembling.
You never met him before today.
Mr. David paid me $50,000 to sign that document, Dr. Adams continued, his voice breaking. He told me it was a formality for an insurance claim. I needed the money. My practice is struggling. I'm deeply sorry. I didn't know what he was planning. The confession hung in the air. Damning. Irreversible. The final nail in David's coffin. David looked around the room. Trapped. Defeated. The arrogance drained from his face. Replaced by sheer terror. He realized it was over. Laura pulled out her phone. I have already contacted the authorities, David. They are waiting outside. We had Dr. Adams' confession recorded. As if on cue, Officer Miller and another detective stepped into the house. The same Officer Miller who had doubted me the night of the break-in. The same officer who had dismissed my concerns. Mr. David, Officer Miller said, moving towards him. His voice was cold. Professional. Firm. You are under arrest. For burglary, conspiracy, fraud, forgery, and elder abuse. David didn't resist. He just stood there, broken. A hollow man. As the officer put the handcuffs on him, he looked at Sarah, a flicker of desperation in his eyes, pleading, but she didn't look at him. She was looking at me, her eyes filled with relief and love. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating, but also liberating. The rot had been exposed. The tearing down had begun. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating, the aftermath of a storm. Sarah collapsed onto the sofa, sobbing uncontrollably. The sound was heartbreaking. Raw, I sat next to her and held her tightly, like I used to when she was a little girl. I'm so sorry, Dad, she whispered, her voice choked with tears. I was so blind. I thought he loved me. I thought he was trying to help. She pulled back, looked at me with tear-filled eyes. How could I have been so stupid? How could I have doubted you? He was manipulative, sweetheart, I said, stroking her hair. He used your love against you. He used your grief. It's not your fault. He fooled everyone. He was a master illusionist. And we had all fallen for his tricks. We sat there for a long time, surrounded by the ghosts of the past and the wreckage of the present. But we were together, and that was a start. The following months were a blur of legal proceedings. Laura was ruthless. She dismantled David's life piece by piece. His firm collapsed. His clients sued him. He confessed to the embezzlement. The Ponzi scheme was exposed. He went to jail for a long time. The illusion was shattered. The truth was out, and justice was served. Sarah filed for divorce. She sold the glass house, the symbol of the illusion she had lived in, the cold museum of her past life. She moved back in with me temporarily. The healing process was slow, painful. The betrayal had left deep scars. The trust we had lost was slowly being rebuilt. Day by day, conversation by conversation, brick by brick, we were repairing the foundation. One evening, a few months later, Sarah and I were sitting in my backyard. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. George was trimming the hedges nearby. The St. Helens roses filled the air. The house felt warm again. It's peaceful here, Sarah said quietly. The shadows under her eyes were gone. She looked stronger, more grounded, more like the daughter I remembered. It is, I agreed. I was carving a small wooden bird. The familiar motion soothed me. Dad, she began hesitantly, do you think things will ever feel normal again? I looked at the house I had built with my own hands. The solid brick walls, the warm wood floors, the memories embedded in the foundation. Normal? Maybe not, I said, taking her hand. But we will be okay. We are family, Sarah. We break, but we rebuild. That's what we do. She squeezed my hand, a small, genuine smile touching her lips. The first real smile I had seen in a long time. As the sun disappeared below the horizon, I realized that David had underestimated me. He thought I was a weak, confused old man, a rotting foundation ready to collapse. But he forgot one important thing. I was a carpenter. I knew how to recognize rot, and I knew how to tear it down and build something stronger, something solid, something meant to last. Thanks for listening. Please rate our story in the comments. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe. Your support means a lot, because your time matters.